Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Milsurp World Podcast, a podcast all about military surplus. I'm your host today, Danny, and we are joined by Aaron and Matt from Fuddbusters.
How's it going, guys? Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming on, Matt. So you are with the YouTube channel Fuddbusters, which is how I came across you. Actually, CN Arsenal, they linked your video, which is how I ran across it, and I watched the video on CNR Firearms, which was good. Like that's a really good that was a really good video, full of a lot of information.
I super appreciate it.
Yeah, then I checked out your other two videos, and it was, again, man, it's you're like your quality for somebody just starting out on YouTube is a lot higher than most people's first videos. So I get the impression that you have some experience.
Yeah. So I've worked in the civil rights space for a while. I was at the Cato Institute, and then I've been working with Firearms Policy Coalition. I did some of their videos, and it was actually Othais from CN Arsenal who's encouraging me to just start doing my own videos. And so that's a couple of weeks ago, he started goading me. He finally goaded me into doing it. And so there it was.
Nice, man. Yeah. It's always, I think it's always a good thing to hear, more from like the legal side of, the firearms like rights community. Cause, you hear a lot of people just sort of saying, oh, my rats, my 2A and stuff like that. But, not a lot of people actually, working on it, and becoming lawyers and fighting the good fights. So,
I would say that the actual laws too.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean that I post the actual laws instead of just asserting? Right. And so like that's kind of how I feel. I mean, I actually hate lawyers. I'm one of them self-hating lawyers. So I would get frustrated in the space. There's all kinds of people who said, well, they ruled this. And it's like, really? Show me. And no one ever actually can. So I kind of set out to try to fix some of that stuff, starting with my own pet peeves and then seeing where it goes.
Yeah. I can understand that. I have quite a few pet peeves just of stuff that I've heard, over and over again. Both of us being from Florida, one of the first like pet peeves that I developed around like firearm laws was probably.
Can I guess it?
Yeah, go ahead.
The 3-step.
Yes, that's exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
And guess what it is? It's not real.
Yeah, no, it does not exist. And I heard so many law enforcement say that in my county that when I started, so before I was 21 and I could conceal carry, I printed out a copy of the Florida statute, going over securely encased laws. Mm-hmm. And I printed that out and I kept that in my vehicle, like with my gun, just in case it ever, somebody ever tried to, get onto me for carrying a gun in my car, that I could just say, here's the law, sir. It's not that 3-step.
Right, you're going to have to explain to me.
Okay, so Matt's probably going to do a much better job than me. Go ahead, Matt.
Oh, well, you flatter me. So in Florida, we actually have somewhat draconian laws when it comes to the carrying of firearms when you don't have a concealed carry permit. And so naturally, where do you want to have your heater the most aside from on your person, your car, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so basically you can't have it immediately on your body. It has to just be securely stowed in the vehicle is what the law says. And so if you go on any forum or ARFCOM or Reddit or whatever in the state of Florida, people will always say, securely encased or securely stored means that there's 3 separate actions, 3 steps you need to take to access the firearm.
Huh.
And it's a lie.
It's just, it's not true at all. It's not how the law reads. And it's very plainly stated. Like, I don't know shit. And I was able to easily access the Florida statute and read it. And I was like, oh, like it has nothing to do.
Are we allowed to swear on this podcast?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's fucking bullshit. It's a bunch of FUD garbage. Yeah, no, they'll say, no, you can't just put it in your glove box. It has to be in a container in your glove box. And it's just a bunch of absolute trash.
There's actually something similar in Illinois where if you're moving firearms around, the firearms have to be separate from the ammo. Right. So you can't have anything loaded in your car.
Oh, yeah. I hate carrying guns through Illinois.
But it doesn't say it has to be in a case. But if you go and ask like 100 different people, they're all going to be like, that needs to be in a case. I was like, no, it doesn't say that. It just says the gun and the ammunition cannot be readily, like, you cannot just like reach over and put the ammunition in the gun immediately. It just has to be like the gun in the front, the ammo in the back. Done.
Yeah, and so you'll get a lot of this from, well, my Uncle Randy's a cop, and he said this. And I kind of know where the 3-step thing came from in Florida. It's kind of a, or at least I think I do. I might be ascribing too much intelligence to Fudds and cops who haven't read the law, but I think that it's a bastardization of the FOPA requirement, right? To be able to travel interstate through bad states. I think it's kind of like a bastardization of those requirements, which are that it be in your trunk basically and separate from its ammunition, which kind of like 1, 2, 3 type of thing.
See, that's interesting. Yeah. I don't know that much about traveling in between states, except for like right now, because I never, when I lived in Florida, I never went out of state.
Well, there's no reason to.
Yeah, but now, so Kansas City's right on the state line with Missouri and Kansas. So luckily, Kansas is very gun friendly. So like, I don't have to worry about any of that stuff. But luckily, I kind of got a little flack for this. I made a video a long time ago, and I mentioned how coming from Florida to Missouri, it's like a breath of fresh air with the gun laws here, because there's so much better here in Missouri. Like there's a lot less like little tiny. Like the no waiting period, open carry is allowed. Not that I would ever open carry, but I just like that that's legal.
It should be allowed, but made fun of.
Yeah, there you go. Allowed but made fun of. That's the new slogan for the open carry movement.
Although I would like if open carry was legal, I don't think I'd be able to not hoist a shosha on Halloween or something. But
yeah. Yeah, that'd be pretty swell.
Danny, to me, it just kind of makes sense that Florida would have stricter gun laws, because you have a lot of people from the East Coast that retire there.
It's slowly getting worse and worse. I noticed a lot.
That's been the trope forever, is that people from New York retire in Florida.
Right, but they failed to do anything about the law for decades. There was no movement in Florida's gun laws until like 2017.
Oh man, yeah, and I think it was the Republicans that ended up, not to get all political, but I think it was the Republicans that passed all, and it was crazy. I was like, wow, all the Republicans are introducing like gun bills, like they like self-regulated.
It was all Corcoran, which I mean that would be getting deep into Florida state politics, but like it was. I actually have inside information from that. I have some buddies up there in Tallahassee, and it was a total goat show. There was one dude running that whole thing and just making it happen. Like it was a total mess.
Yeah. See, that was nuts to me, which is, it sucks for the people that always vote along party lines, because like, any party can screw you over. Putting all your faith in the red party, doesn't.
Red team, why have you done this?
Yeah. Yeah. It's rough, man. And I can see it only getting worse. I heard of a soldier who was like 19. And he was refused a rifle at an FFL because the FFL is like, nope, you got to be 21.
Well, in Florida now, you do have to be 21 to purchase from an FFL.
Yeah, well, unless you're a member of the military, is one of the exceptions.
Oh, right.
And so this guy's like a Marine, and he's getting went through boot camp and everything, and he's denied I think it was a shotgun. It was something just like real whatever. Wholesome. Yeah, it was probably like a Biden approved double barrel that he wanted, and.
I forgot about the military. I knew about the law enforcement exemption. I forgot about the military exemption.
Yeah. But I couldn't believe it. But it was around 2017 is when I switched my residency from Florida to Missouri. So I was a little bit like, it was a little refreshing. I hate to say that as somebody living in Florida right now, but.
Well, I mean, I had to learn all about interstate travel problems because I worked in DC and I lived in Northern Virginia. And if I made a wrong turn, I'd wind up in Maryland.
Oh.
So like I had to know all about FOPA.
Oh man. See, that's my nightmare, man, is like making a wrong turn and crossing a bridge and ending up, in the wrong state, this imaginary line.
What was her name? The lady that they went and did that way.
Oh yeah. She had a gun in her trunk.
Yeah.
Right?
And she made a wrong turn and wound up in New Jersey and then was in the clink.
Yeah. It's like one of my nightmares. I just recently, like a little over a month ago, I made a road trip out west. I went out to like St. George, Utah, and the furthest west I went was a little past Vegas. But I wasn't even that close to California, but I was close enough that I like double checked my route like every 15 minutes to make sure that we were going nowhere close to it, because I had, you know, guns in the car and stuff. And
I lived in Northern Virginia up there on the corner for 2 years. And I can probably count on one hand the times I felt comfortable carrying, because I could carry in Virginia, but like I could actually throw rocks into Maryland. So I like, you know, in DC. So I just didn't want to, like, I was just mortified by the concept.
Yeah.
Danny, you were terrified driving through Illinois.
Oh, dude, I'm paranoid. If I have a trip that I'm going through Illinois, sometimes I either will just not carry like certain scary guns, or I'll go overboard with the laws just because I don't want to get pulled over by the one, you know, Fudd cop in Illinois who, you know, get me on some chumped up charges. So yeah.
It doesn't matter if he's wrong about the law, because, you know, you wind up spending a night and a few $100 to straighten it out, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And, you know, I'm all about hyper technical, and that's what I always say in the Fuddbusters video. Anything more than minimum compliance is self-regulation. But
yeah, I really like that line too. Yeah.
Well, thank you. There is a degree of practical compliance that I would do though when I was in those situations. Like it's, you know, and sometimes you feel the weight of the cards, right? And especially like I'm not trying to get terribly political, but I'm not white, and so sometimes I talk more, you know, than I would advise like a client to talk to law enforcement, just to get myself out of a, you know, situation.
Yeah, I've only been pulled over and like had to inform the cop one time about my gun, but that was like that was a pretty intense situation, and you know, without getting too political, it was, yeah.
Oh man, but then what's funny, I never had problems when I was a kid in Florida, because I mean, you know, South Florida is such a multicultural place. Like, you know, I never was worried about it. The cops were generally cool with me. I remember when I was 18 and I went like on my 18th birthday, I'm going to date myself, but I went over to the gun shop and bought an M1 carbine and put it in the trunk. And then like 2 days later, I got pulled over. He's like, "Do you have any weapons in the car?" And I go, "Yeah, I have an M1 carbine in the back seat." And he just goes, "Why?" I said, "Why not? It's cool." And he goes, "Okay." And that was that. there was no 3 steps, you know, or nothing.
Yeah. Which rifles are exempt from that anyway, aren't they?
I don't know about that.
No.
You know, I don't even like. Yeah, I think there's some weird thing, but I did also have a Star 30M with it, which I, you know, didn't have a problem with either. And I know that's a pretty eclectic couple of guns to be hanging out there.
Yeah. That's probably one of the good things about like Milsurps, you know, in general. Like, they're not scary looking. You know, if you get pulled over or whatever and you got a pile of Milsurps, it's like cop probably would just be like, "Oh, cool," you know.
Oh, I was about to tell you though, the one time I got hell was when I went to law school in Alabama, and there was an 03 Springfield that I got for like, you know, $500. It was mint, and I threw it in the trunk of my car. Same time, or not in the trunk, the back seat, and I got pulled over for running a non-existent stop sign, and man, they gave me hell about that thing. They took it. They were like, "Which one of these numbers do we run?" Right. Like, oh man, it was a huge goat. Like, that was the, you know, like I was just saying, it's funny because we were talking about how, like, you know, people get all freaked out in Florida about the 3 steps nonsense, but then I'm in freaking Alabama with an 03 Springfield, and the guy's like, "Sir, are you transporting this weapon loaded?" And I go, "Dude, it's an 03 Springfield." He goes, "So it's loaded?" And I'm like, "No, you idiot."
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy, man. About an old bolt action. Have a 100-year-old bolt action. That's scary. Scary stuff.
It's all just who it is and who he thinks you are, you know. And that's why in Florida it's great, because you just hand them your concealed carry permit and they tend to chill, because it's basically an "I'm not a felon" card.
Yeah, exactly.
which
I'm not.
I don't think we should have to have those at all, but it is nice.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I don't know if mine's still valid. I still have a Florida carry permit, even though I'm like, it's the same one I had when I was a Florida resident. I don't know when I switched residencies if it gets invalidated, but
who cares?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, Missouri has constitutional carry and Kansas does, so I don't really have to worry about it.
Must be nice.
Yeah, it's nice, man. Well, speaking of your 03 Springfield, that's a good segue into CNR Firearms, which I was just going to say, if you would like to reiterate maybe your video a little bit. I think everyone on here is going to be pretty familiar with CNR Firearms, but if you have any like sort of the biggest misconceptions around a CNR license or anything like that, did you just want to speak on briefly?
Oh, so yeah, what we covered in the video, it was just what is and is not a CNR firearm. People get confused pretty much about every aspect of CNRs, it seems. They get confused about, what modifications are done to it and is now not a CNR, and like, is that permanent? Is that not? And it's really not the case. It's really simple. If the firearm is 50 or more years old, it doesn't matter what it is. It's a CNR, including, transferable machine guns, which fairly soon all transferable machine guns will be CNR, which is a kind of a sad state of affairs.
Oh boy. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so 50 years old, it's CNR. So that means, yes, there's CNR, M16s, AR-15s, early, I think some of the earliest MP5s, right, that were on the civilian markets might have come in 1970. I'm not 100% sure on that, but no, some people think that, they'll never let, they'll never let an AK be CNR and this and that. It's just not the case.
But it's got to be on the list.
But is it a hard, like, rolling 50 years then, just no matter what, if it's over 50 years old and not dicked with, it's CNR?
Yeah, and Aaron, I appreciate the list thing. But yeah, no, it doesn't have to be on the list. If it's 50 years old, it's CNR, whether it's on the list or not. I wasn't saying for you. I was saying for the audience. Not sure.
Because I know there's somebody on our audience, and I do think our audience is fairly intelligent, but I know there's somebody going, but what about the list? And I was like, the list is just helpful.
The list is for weird shit. The list is for the CZ82. The list is for like the Winchester trappers that had to be, like, they weren't sure which serial numbers had it. So if you want your Winchester trapper that's 15-inch barrel to be exempt from the NFA, you have to specifically ask the ATF to confirm that it's a Winchester trapper.
Or the broom handles that you can have stocks.
Right. Well, that's all of them though, which is interesting. All of the room handles are exempt.
Right, but not all of the what is it? The other ones.
Lugers.
Not the Luger. Well, it's not just the Lugers though. It's also the what did the Canadians use? The high powers?
High power. So yeah, but that's another thing where it's kind of fascinating. So with Lugers, technically any Luger could be, if you look at one of the Luger listings, because it's like if they were used by some weird country and that country just like bought a bunch of them and put stocks on them. So, that's an interesting thing, but you'd have to have that type of stock. And even then, I'm not sure if I buy it, right? Because you exempt the firearm. So I'm not sure if I buy that they can exempt the firearm, but then say if you like put a different type of stock on it, it's not okay as long as it's like still period. That's something that's open. It's never really been fought over except on forums where, the oldest boomerist voice will always prevail. The high powers.
Oh, sorry.
The what it specifically says about the high powers is Canadian Chinese contract Mark I stars.
Yep.
Which it's hard to know exactly which ones were Chinese contract as well.
Yeah. I have an Inglis high power, but it's not, I don't think it's one of the Chinese contracts because it was re-arsenaled. It's got the FTR markings on it, and like, because the British re-arsenaled it in the 60s.
Right.
So I've always wondered with mine, but yeah, I know, I'm pretty certain it's not a Chinese contract. But
Danny, do you remember we had the guy on our Facebook page that sold reproduction broom handle stocks, and people would always get up in arms about it?
Yeah. They'd say, no, you can't. It has to be the original German stock. And that's not even what it says in That's not even what it says in the overly aggressive extra constitutional regulation.
Yeah.
It says original type.
Yep. I mean, he made good quality stuff too, and we just let him do it because but it got to the point where people would get so pissed off about it. We're just like, fuck it.
Why were they getting pissed off?
Because he's making an SBR.
Mhm.
So, I mean, that's like stamp nannies at the gun range. You need a stamp for that? Dude, what do you fucking care, dude?
Yeah.
The dude's having a good time. Are you just jealous? It's like either he paid the money or he's got the big balls. You know, one or the other, let him do it.
Yeah, it's weird how many like gun people are apparently super pro gun laws because they love enforcing it, you know, online and at the range.
Oh yeah, no, that's at the range. That's why that's one of the reasons I bought land, is because, you know, I'm on an SOT and I've got a, you know, small collection of CNR machine guns and I enjoy shooting them. I like to shoot them. And I got sick of just getting like treated like, you know, a dog's breakfast every time I went to the range by these guys like checking the serial number on my fucking gun. It's like, what are you going to do if it's one number off? Are you going to call the cops and have me sent to jail? Like, is that what you're going to do, Mr. Pro Gun?
Were these just like regular dudes at the range, or were they the range officer people?
Oh no, if it was a regular dude at the range, I would have had some words. But these were people who were like, you know, range officers who were like, well, hold on, gonna see your stamp. If whenever like there's a dude in another stall, this has happened to me several times, asks about one of my guns, and all of my shit is legal, you know, I've got too much to lose, right? But they'll be like, so you got a stamp for that? I just go, what are you talking about? And I watch them like panic. I have no idea what you mean. It's especially with my Sten gun. I used to get where'd you get that? And I always say, I found it on the floor out front.
That's good. Be like, what, you need paperwork for these?
What are you talking about? My uncle gave it to me.
Man, that's good. So I've about like the CNR exemptions from the NFA, because from my understanding, the LPO8s, like artillery Lugers, are one of the Lugers that's exempt. Mm-hmm. So I have a Luger that's an X artillery Luger. So it's got like the frame and everything that's got the notch in it for the rear sight, but the Germans rebarreled it with the short like 4-inch barrel in like 1923, and it was a police pistol after that. So it's like an X artillery Luger, and it's been so you making
have to
me
look. You have to. You guys are like putting me on the spot, but you have to look at the line, and also it's not a CNR exemption. Let's make that clear. It's a collector's item exemption. So CNR guns aren't automatically exempt from the NFA, but certain guns that are more likely to be used as a collector item than a weapon are exempt. So there'll be a line that refers to that class of Luger, and it'll say, it will either mention the barrel length or it will not, right? And it will either mention, you know, the upfront hardware or it will not. And so I think you see what I'm saying there.
Okay. So if I wanted to be 100% sure, I'd have to write in and get my gun added to the ever-growing list.
You want to slap?
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm sure if you like, see, what I want somebody to do is to write in and explain how the Finns use regular old PO8s with board stocks, right? And like get some based ATF guy to just basically be like, any Luger, if it may have possibly maybe been used by the Finns.
Yeah, that'd be a good thing if we can find one, right?
You know, I talk a lot of smack, but they do exist. Like whoever approved the CZ82s, like, bless you. I think somebody had like a check fetish though, because pretty much everything is on there. The 52, the 32, the 45. Yeah,
didn't you say that some pistol that was made up until the 90s?
Yeah, the VZ82 or CZ82.
So, see, that's interesting. But you said if I'm remembering correctly, you said on your video that not all P38s are.
Well, however, name me a P38 that's less than 50 years old. So previously, you know, earlier in time before P38s were 50 years old, they added to the CNR list every pre-38 that was made until 1947, which is completely random, right? Because that is, if your justification is World War II, well, I thought it ended a little bit before that, right?
Yeah, that must be for the French P-38s that the French were making at the factory, because they made them for 2 years after the war at the factory.
Yeah, the poorly named Grey Ghost.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Grey
I'm a
Ghost.
huge French collector, and I still don't have one of those.
Oh man, yeah.
I do have a Milsurp P1 though.
I don't even know what that is.
That's basically Milsurp, the guys behind the Mr. 73. They were who kept making Walthers under license when the Germans still weren't quite able to make them.
Okay, yeah, I remember now. Okay,
so yeah, basically Milsurp P1s were like in the very early parts of West Germany, where basically not all of them, but a great many West German police guns were made in France just because of the way the chips fell.
Yeah, huh?
Yeah, Milsurps are great. I'm a Walther collector and a French collector, and so I'm very tickled that the Milsurp guns are considered second quality, almost as good as pre-war German.
Yeah, they're pretty. The prices on those tend to be a lot less from what I see.
Because boomers hate the French.
Yeah. Which, I mean, I think that's changing now, man, because a lot of French guns are no longer cheap.
Oh yeah, they still hate the French, but they listen to Uber Gun Jesus said it was cool, and so now I want it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Which was very frustrating to somebody who was trying to complete a Berthier collection when they went from like $180 to $600 in the course of no time.
Oh man, yep. That's got to be tough, because like Ian, he's a collector, and I think he really loves the hobby and giving out information, and he wants to share, like his passion of French guns, but like he knows what he's doing to like the market,
Yeah, there's a lot of people who talk about that. I've worked with him. He's a good guy. I helped him out with his Moss 38, and he was reasonable. But I do get a little salty that a guy named McCullum is increasing the prices of arms for that. The guy named LaRosiere has been trying to collect for years.
Oh, man, yeah.
Like, no, give them to me. They're mine.
Yeah. So I guess you were collecting them before they were cool, right? So it's.
Well, yeah, because like half of the males in my family died in World War I, so I was pretty, that were alive then, obviously. But I was always heard stories from back then, and I just really wanted to get my hand on all the equipment.
Yeah. Wow.
Because my dad was actually a World War II vet in France.
Oh, wow.
So I very much love my Chatellero, and I was very angry that I had to fight Ian for the one that came before it. But then, lo and behold, when Ian wasn't bidding, the one I got sold for like half the price. So that was just an interesting, machine gun prices don't usually fluctuate that much.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of movement.
There's
not a lot of movement compared to other stuff because not a lot of stuff being sold or moved around.
Exactly. That's why they're, old machine guns are a pretty good investment. But when you get into something completely ridiculous like a Chatellero or a Shoshaw, there's a lot more volatility. Because, the question is whether the three guys that actually want one are awake that morning.
That's why when I got a Lee Navy, I was shocked at how much, I paid a good amount for it, but I was still like, this is not as expensive as I think it should be.
Oh, yeah. Oh, right. No, I've been wanting one of those too for ages. And, I don't want to spend the gun broker price. And like you were saying, it's so, the more niche you get, and I think as we get closer to like completing our collections, as if they'd ever get completed, you get into more niche stuff that you perceive as massively valuable. But then like my, I have a G3340. It's in my videos. And, I waltz into the pawn shop. It had been sitting there for 6 months and it was just marked Mauser.
Yep.
And I was like, can I have that?
Yeah. That's pretty much how I got mine. It was just, I think it was just marked. Yeah. And it was just marked K98K.
You get it for under $1,000?
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah, thanks.
And then Othias had to like poop on me when I was like, look what I got. And he goes, haha, that's the imitation. And then he brought out the
VZ33.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's like yours doesn't have the cool stock, so
Yeah, it's all about that extra metal plating on the side of the stock.
that's what sold it for me.
Yeah, it's pretty unique. I can't think of any other gun that has one of those. Like the Swiss could have really used them.
Well, I guess the Swiss were less negligent with their spike boots.
Yeah, I guess so. But some of their stocks are pretty rough, man.
Yeah, that's true. I've seen a few.
Let's see. Going on to the next question. We have a pretty long list of questions. We should probably start getting through these.
We do tend to ramble.
So this next question is kind of about. It's one of my major holdups with me personally getting an 03. So the question is: can the ATF inspect your collection / not need a warrant to search your home if you get an 03?
Okay, so there's two parts in the law that refers to this, right? So there's the paragraph which refers to basically when they suspect you of a crime. If they suspect you of committing a crime, it's going to be easier for them to get in. Okay. They do have to have, like, it's one of those things where they do have to have, probable cause, and they are going to be going before a judge, right, for that. So it moves, I'd say it moves the needle a little bit, but not much. But then there's what everybody worries about, the random inspections, and that's where the law refers to how once a year without a warrant, ATF can come during business hours, right, to basically come peep your shit. Then in bold, it says, and I'm paraphrasing, I don't have it in front of me, but in bold it says, collectors of curios and relics at their election shall, right, have the opportunity to be able to do this at the nearest field office. So what winds up happening with that, the people who I've seen who get, inspected, they'll come and, an agent will knock on your door, right? Usually during the business hour that you put up on your thing, and will be like, so, hey, let me see it. And if you go, thanks, not interested, right, they'll play the game. They'll either be like, if you refuse to let us in, we take your license away, which is true. But if you specifically say, all right, let's, when can I meet you at the station? They might be like, well, it'll be easier on you if we just do it right now. Like, come on, where's that dog? Let me see that dog. So does that kind of answer the question?
Yeah, I think so. So they can kind of muscle in if they want to, but if you know the law.
Yeah, know the law. Don't talk to them. Right. I mean, talk to them and be like, yeah, I understand. I elect to, go over this with you at the field office. When do you want to meet there? And then they're going to be like, they're not, a lot of these guys are contractors. The contractors will be chill about it. The ones that aren't are not going to be chill about it. And they'll be like, are you sure? Like, they'll try to muscle you. But here's the thing. If they're muscling you like that, it means they don't have anything. So just be like, no, man, it's cool. I'll meet you there. Do you like chocolate? I'll bring you some chocolate. What kind of chocolate? Just be nice to them. And they what are they going to do? You bring your book. They look at your book.
So that's it. They just look at your book.
And if they find, but they're going to audit your book, and if they see a problem, right? So if the reason they're coming at you is right because they saw, the main things that trigger these is multiple sales. So if they see that you bought, let's say, 50 CZ82s or something, or 10 of them or whatever, they'll be, they may be like, why he did that? And then, if you don't have the right number on your inbound, then you're not in for a good time. Just keep your books up to date is the advice I give. Don't fudge your books, because in the unlikely event that they come check you out, you don't know, and they don't know everything you got, but there'll be some reason they were there, and so they're going to be looking for that. And then while they're in there looking for your book, they're going to be making sure if you made a disposition that you filled it out. Right? They're just gonna. It's just like any other audit, except they shoot your dog if you lose the audit.
Yeah, that's like, for someone like me who has no interaction with the ATF. Like, my extent of the interactions with the ATF was one trying to get me to do something illegal at a gun show one time. Like, the idea of doing that is a little intimidating.
I know that story.
Story time.
Okay. So I used to work at the gun shows all the time in Tallahassee. And I had a 1911 like for sale, just a Smith & Wesson, whatever. And it was on the table. This guy comes up and he's looking at it. He asked me like one or two questions about it. And he goes, "Oh, cool. Okay. Yeah, I'd like to buy this." And it was weird. He didn't haggle about prices or anything, right? Setting off all the red flags, and just like him and his haircut, now he's holding himself and whatever is like, red flags. Then he's like, "Yeah, so yeah." So, he's got the like oversized t-shirt to cover his like duty holster that he's like badly concealing,
Right.
And he's like, "I'd like to buy this gun. Only problem is I'm from South Carolina. I'm just here on work. Is that a problem?" So I was like, "Yeah."
Did you say, "Thank you, officer, for trying to entrap me. Heroes like you deserve stomach cancer. Perish."
No, I just did the whole like, "Oh, no, sorry, you can buy it, but I'd have to mail this to your FFL in South Carolina, and he was like, "Oh, really? We couldn't work out some deal?" I said, "No, it's if you're not a Florida resident, can't do it. Sorry."
And then he gave you a gold star.
I wish I got a gold star from that. A little like gold star with a little ATF, in the center of it.
Complier.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had those types of interactions too.
Which is it's weird. This is like one of the only hobbies that you have to be a lawyer to not be a felon.
Which is bullshit.
Yeah.
And like I felt so bad. I felt so incredibly bad one time because in Florida, they tweaked the laws and it's really unclear. Some of it is unclear, but it's like it is unlawful for a person under 21 to buy a handgun, right, in Florida. And so I was selling this like total piece of shit. I don't even remember what it was, but this kid was like, "Hey, I really want it," really nice kid. I talked to him for like an hour and he goes, "Look, man, I'm going to be real with you. I'm 20. And I was like, "Nice try, officer." And, he was like, "No, I'm not a cop. I was just being real with you." And I like was really verbally abusive. And then it turned out that, later on I ran into him again and no, he wasn't a cop. He was just a kid. And I told him, I was like, "Dude, I'm so sorry. Like this law is bullshit. You shouldn't have had to go through that." And I did tell him, I said, "When it's your birthday, call me." And I'm going to give him some Milsurp when it's his birthday. But like that was just such a, because I really did feel like I was in the middle of a trap. And why should I feel like that,
Yeah. It's kind of it was a weird feeling. Like I've heard of stuff like that happening, but having it happen to me, I was like, "Oh, like that's a real thing." And it's a weird thing because I could have said yes and then been a felon, went to federal prison just for it
would have been hard to bag you, but yeah, like you could have if you then snitched on yourself. Which is what most people do. Most people snitch on themselves. And the way I knew this kid wasn't a cop is that later on he was a client of mine. So I was like, "Oh shit, you're not a cop."
And yeah. So speaking of the CNR license in the book, as far as maintaining that book after either relinquishing or your license expires and you don't renew it, like what do you have to do with the book? And
I've heard.
Yeah, because I've heard both sides. I think I heard Ian on one of his videos say, or somebody that you have to like send it into the ATF. Then I heard somebody said that you just throw it away, burn it, whatever.
No. So generally, they may like it depends on who your local guy is, right? I would get in touch with your field office and ask what they want. They may instruct you to get rid of it, right? But generally they'll just ask for it. But I would never just torch it as a matter of course. I would definitely ask first because, the impetus is on you to maintain those records. And it's not terribly clear because of the way the law is written when it comes to licensees. So, if it was me, I would call with, local field office and be like, "Hey, I'm getting out of the collector's game. What do you want with this?" And, get their response in writing.
Okay. So if you don't ask, then you should, rule of thumb, you should hang on to the book even after.
It's not a big book. Come on. Just have it.
Oh, but Danny doesn't like any kind of records of anything he's done.
Yeah.
It is annoying. So for me, the problem with my after I became a CNR, is now there's some number on like the amount of guns I have, which is frustrating. Of course, you don't log in guns that you acquired intrastate right before you had your license. So I still don't know exactly how many guns I have, but I'm upset that there's some hint.
Yeah. I'm like a stickler when it comes to following the law because it's like a big fear of mine is doing something.
You're paranoid, Danny.
Yeah, I'm pretty paranoid about losing my Second Amendment right.
Right.
So I don't want to do anything, and so
that's the funny thing about us, right? About gun guys is that we really like guns, right? We love them, and there's always this dagger hanging above our head where it's like dot your T's and cross your I's.
Yeah.
Or other way around, whatever.
Yeah.
But
okay.
I know what you mean, and I mean me, like I'm a gun lawyer. Like I really wish I could, just do whatever, but I have to. Like you, I toe the line.
Yeah, unfortunately. So, in your experience, is there any cons to having a CNR?
I mean, in my personal experience, no. Like it is annoying to maintain the book, right? But then it's just something you get used to. That's the main thing is the book and, interacting more with federal law enforcement than you otherwise would, which I think the average person should not interact with them at all. The average person should spend their whole life without interacting with them. But I think that the Gun Control Act is unconstitutional and we should be able to get guns interstate however we want. But, if you're a guy who collects stuff and you're in these collecting communities and, there's stuff that you want to get and you don't want to break the law, it's probably worth it to just get your license and be able to just get stuff in the mail.
Yeah. I mean, that's the big thing. It's just pretty much those two things that we just went over, kind of my two big hang-ups in getting a CNR, the federal involvement and inspection.
Well, how many guns do you acquire interstate?
Oh, what
percent?
I'm not sure.
50%?
Between 20 and 50%, I probably get a gun broker or stuff like that.
And so then on each one of those, you pay $25 or more.
Yeah. Which I have a deal with the FFL, so it varies, but yeah.
Right, but so then you think about that. You think about the amount of time you spend driving right to the FFL, the time that you wait for it, which it's your thing and you want to have it. So the way I would make the decision is I would look at that, and then I would put all that together in a cost, not only the monetary cost, but the convenience cost and everything like that. And then I would weigh that against, my desire to just not be bothered with it and see what the total value is. For me, it was a net positive, so I did it, and I've never regretted it.
Wow, those are very good points, Matt. I appreciate it. Yeah,
you're welcome.
It was cool to have stuff delivered to my door in Illinois. It really makes you feel like you're breaking some kind of law.
Shouldn't feel that way, but it do.
I mean, it's different, obviously, in Illinois with the FOID and everything like that. Mm-hmm. But it was weird the first time because I think it was I ordered an M57 from Classic, actually, Danny, and it was just dropped off on my porch. Even though they said they signed off on it, but they just left it there on the porch.
Yeah.
First one I got in the mail was actually before I had my CNR because it was an antique. It was an 1892 revolver. And I just went into my apartment complex and opened the little mailbox, and there it was. And it was kind of like a little giddy thing. I was like, ooh, it's a gun.
It's weird to get that delivered, like your Amazon packages or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I've had a weird experience getting an antique dropped off on my front door. I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but it was weird because the guy that I bought it from, he swears that, and I trust him as Gage, he wrapped it up and everything, it was packaged well. But when I just opened up I don't know how long it was on my front step, but I opened up my front door and there's this long box and the top of it's open, it's laying on its side. and I can see the buttstock of the rifle, like it's not wrapped or anything. And it's like, how long has this been on my front porch? Why is it open? Why is it unwrapped? But it was an antique. It was like a Chilean 1895, and
nice.
It's like, yeah, that's cool. Good job, post office.
Post office. Yeah, no, I've had the toast office deliver half of a Carcano once. It had clearly been dragged behind a truck for some time.
Wow. Like, I mean, it wasn't obviously when you bought it, I'm guessing.
Oh no, it was like most assuredly dragged.
Wow. Yeah.
I'm still sore about that one.
Yeah, that sucks. Hopefully it wasn't anything crazy rare or something.
It was one of the TS carbines. So
yeah,
really rare.
Man, I need to get a TS. I've been meaning to. They're like $230 on Palmetto right now.
Yeah, that's another thing that I'm into. That's kind of weird. I really like Carcanas. They're so easy to collect.
You're talking to the guy that loves M95s. I'm not going to think you're weird.
Wait, which M95s? Dutch or Steyr?
Steyr.
Mm-hmm.
I have 9.
You got long boys?
Just 1.
Yeah, it took me ages to get. I accidentally bought 4 once because a proxy bid auction, it glitched out, I swear to God. Yeah, and so I wound up with 4 carbines, and then I spent ages trying to get a long boy. I finally got one, and I love it. It's this, and you know how, well, you as an M95 guy will know every M95 you pick up and rack the bolt is a different gun.
Yes.
Yep.
Totally different.
Yeah, this one, the long boy, oh my God, is it smooth.
Converted?
So lucky.
Is it converted?
Is it what?
Converted.
Aaron, you're
oh yeah, it is.
Oh, is it? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, but your release delay is a little slow. You might want to just hold the talk key a little longer.
Ah, okay.
But yeah, it's converted to 56.
Yeah, the Bulgarians, some of those guys seemed to know what they were doing when they did the conversions, and some of them obviously did not get paid very well.
Right. But then they got at least they got their act together before they started making 74s, because boy, do I like me a Bulgy 74.
Yeah, the weird thing, my M95 is, one of the ones that's been converted, and I swear my 95 is smoother than my numbers Mac Swiss 1893.
Now that I've never seen. Yeah, I've had like 5 or 6 of the Shortboys, and they've mostly been pretty horrific, like 400,000 pound trigger and a bolt that you have to grunt to open.
Yeah,
but then once you get a good one, you just hold on to it for life.
Yeah. It's quite. I've felt quite a few after this was my first one, and I just picked it up and it was cheap, so I bought it, and it just happened to be really good. And I was really surprised after I got my Swiss, because I figured, a Swiss made numbers matching, Mannlicher, this has got to be something, nice. But it's like
they were like, we hate this.
Yeah.
No, I've got a Ross too. I love straight pulls. I've got a Ross that's really
you're in the right category, buddy.
Mark III Bravo.
Danny has a Ross now. Danny picked up a Ross.
Which Mark?
Oh, it's a 3. It's 1917, but it's a DP gun, which is kind of like the mystery, because apparently not many Mark IIIs were turned into DP guns.
Right. Mine's one of the British ones with the weird triangle rear sight, and I absolutely adore it.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it got sanded. Bubba sanded it at some point, but I restained it and made it look a little bit more right. But it shoots good. That's the thing. It shoots good after I spent about 3 hours with the magazine.
Oh man, what'd you have to do to it?
Well, the magazines on the Mark IIIs are like these horrible little sheet metal boxes.
Yeah.
So it was the angle that the cartridge was coming up at was just a little bit too high. So man. I just really carefully had to bend the lips without fatiguing that tin can.
Those 303 feed lips, man.
The 303 feed lips.
We have an ongoing joke about Enfield mag lips, feed lips.
Oh man, that's is that inspired from Bloke?
Yep.
He's a buddy. He's a good guy.
Well, it's not necessarily Bloke though. It's the super fans of Enfields that just will not take any criticism.
And I love Enfields, but they are a bit fucky sometimes.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
I've had to go on.
Same thing. Like I love them for what they are, but like when you choose to not recognize like the shortcomings of of any design, it's and you like your bias takes over, and it's
right.
Yeah.
I like how they like get together and jack off over the fact that like the warp of the stock is what affects the betting. Like, no, that's a stupid idea. They should have designed the stock better.
Wow. Yeah, that's.
I mean, Danny and I have gone all over about the Enfield or the. See, we had the whole episode about the Fudd lore about whatever gun, and you know, with the machine guns. I thought they were machine guns. They can fire so fast.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Now they're great. They're good rifles. I think they'd be, you know, fine combat rifles. But I mean, you know, they're not godly the way, you know, the hyper fans, as you would say, call them. And you know, I love Enfields, but and they also get mad when you like use a way of fixing a problem that isn't, you know, from the book, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I had a number 1 Mark III that the lock work was just heinously slow, and I found that the striker was oversized. So I took the striker and I was like, I didn't think I was doing anything weird, put it in the lathe, sized it and polished it, and I was like, it's perfect. They're like, what have you done?
Oh man. Yep.
You were supposed to change the spring. Dude, it was too big.
I had a number 4, and it was my only Enfield, and it was a big piece of shit. And I could never get the magazine to feed. I bought another magazine. I could never get it to feed. So I was just like, whatever. And the only interesting detail on my Lee Enfield was that it had an A suffix. Does anybody know what that means?
Nope.
I forgot.
It means that it was assembled somewhere with non-standard parts. Meaning that it could be the screw that holds the band together was slightly off-kiltered, so they had to fix that. Or it could be the receiver is totally different and you can't swap it with anything. Don't know.
I do love that.
Don't know what it means. It just means that mine did not go through the end of the production line without having to go offline and have to be hand fixed.
It's so funny.
And it was a big piece of shit.
I've had, you know what's funny? I've owned 3 number 4 Mark IIs while trying to buy number 4 Mark I's.
Huh.
Yeah, I just only wind up with Mark IIs, which I adore because I'm a trigger queen and they have a much better trigger.
Yeah.
And then I finally wound up with, and this is going to relate to one of your later questions, I finally wound up with a number 4 Mark I Maltby, beautiful gun with the early style cocking piece. And then my buddy was like, we were playing Day of Infamy, and he's like, I really want to get one of these. These are so cool. And because he was a modern gun collector, and I was like, now's my chance. I'm going to get him into CNR stuff. So he wound up with the Maltby.
Yeah. Was that the gateway for him?
Oh yeah. No, then he bought a K98 from me, and then and then he got his CNR, and then I just sent him a Moss 49. So he's in.
Yeah.
He's in. But so what I was, when you said M95, I got excited because I'm also fascinated by the much lamer M95, the Dutch.
Yeah. I honestly considered it at one point, and then I saw Othaius's like infographic, and I'm like, fuck this.
Like, of all the different carbines,
the 40 different versions, and I'm like, nope. You
know, for me, it was I needed a long boy. Like I always want, every time I get into rifles, I want the longest edition. That's what I start with. I don't want to get into the carbines and shit. I want the long boy. And it took me ages to find one. And then I found one. It was $200, and I was like, done. You know,
Danny, do you have a Dutch M95?
I do. Yep.
Oh yeah, you have a bicycle one, don't you?
Yep. Yeah.
Of course, there's a bicycle one.
It's got the wood cover on the mag, right?
Yeah, I forgot. There's like 2 features. The cavalry and the bicycle one are really close, and but it's got the wooden cover on the side and side slung.
They're so nice to shoot.
Zanny's trying to get every 6.5 gun.
Oh, I love, dude, a man after my own heart. I love 6.5.
Yeah. They're great guns. But I'm trying to get every one. So it's like the
you have a
green...
Dota
no, I don't know if I will ever, even though it's a 6.5. Like, I don't know why that's not even on my radar. I know it is one, but
because it's so tremendously spurgy.
Yeah, I guess
Some
so.
French guy is in South America going, boy, have I got a new gun for you.
Oh man, yeah, I can't believe they bought him.
It's because I don't think they had like any other choice. I think they already given him the money.
They were just like, it's a Mauser.
No, he straight lied. Yeah, he just straight lied.
You know, all the other guys across the border, they got Mausers, so you need a Mauser. So here you go. We promise it's a Mauser. Doesn't matter.
A Mauser that eats French food.
Yeah, it was 50 years old even back then when they adopted it.
Yeah, I love that. I love it so much.
Matt, do you have an 1886 Steyr?
You know what? One slipped through my hands. I almost had one.
You're not going to like my story about how I got mine.
Uh-oh. Go on.
I was on Gunbroker, and I just like to troll the new listings. And a guy in, I think it was New Jersey, actually. It was horrible pictures. His shop was covered in garbage, and he had taken the pictures in a rolling chair, like an office chair.
Okay.
It was just, you know what I'm talking about, the kind of listing. Yeah. And he had it labeled wrong. He had it labeled as a later model, the M88. And I'm like, oh, this is neat. And then I looked and I saw, buy it now, $300. Ha ha ha! Buy.
Yeah. The only time I had something like that happen to me was I saw on Gunbroker a Arsenal SLR 100H, which is a Hungarian, Type 3 AK-47 on a Arsenal milled receiver. And this was like 2 years ago when those guns were going for like $1,500, and it was buy it now for $650. And I was like, okay, boop, that's settled.
Yeah, so I got it, and I'm like, oh, I got an M88. So I sent it to a friend of mine, and he goes, dude, that's an M86. And I'm like, are you sure? And he goes, yeah, the magazine extends beyond the trigger guard. That's an M86. And lo and behold, it is totally an M86.
That's awesome. I love it. Speaking of things being listed wrong, and then we can go back on script if you want. But there was
we do random shit.
We found me and some guys in this Discord found this auction on Proxybid where like some podunk auction house in central Alabama had gotten this massive collection. Every single gun was listed wrong, and it was like nothing but extremely rare Mausers, and they were listed as and weird shit like one of the East Asian converted Dutch M95s converted to 303 that was marked as K98 Dirty Birds 8mm question mark.
What?
Yeah.
Dirty Birds.
That's
the best.
Dirty Birds, nice.
Just everything was a K98. And there was 3 Haitian Mausers in that one auction.
What?
Yeah, and I went to get one, and then I fell asleep, and I slept through it. Because I'm half Jamaican, and so I'm really interested in Caribbean firearms. I wanted one of those Haitian Mausers, and they all sold for like $400, and God knows when I'll ever see one again.
Oh.
God, man. I just got a Dominican a couple weeks ago.
Nice, I have one of those.
Yeah, they're not. I'm surprised they're not like they don't go for more because they're
I mean they are FN 35s, right? They're kind of like junky Mausers. Like they're, to me, the 35 series guns, which includes the Haitian Mauser, is like they run and feel to me exactly like a Yugo 24.
Oh yeah, 30 and 35 are basically the same thing. Mine is it was a Brazilian 08 that was converted.
Okay.
It's still in 7, so it's a long one.
Oh, I love 7mm.
Yep.
It's the Lord's caliber.
I have a 7mm machine gun.
Oh.
This is I did not think I would get it. It's
way to humble brag here.
It's a Brita PG.
Don't even know what that is.
You ever played Battlefield 5?
No.
So it's a real piece of shit. It's a short recoil toggle. So I'll just check this out. Italian made, short recoil, toggle locked, 4-shot burst.
It's no Filato, just 4-shot burst.
Semi and 4-shot burst.
Okay.
And so the Italians made these, and like it was a huge mistake. And so Costa Rica bought them
I
all.
was looking at it, it's like, we basically just like, fuck Costa Rica Takeo. I'm looking at them.
Yeah. And the funny thing was, I saw it at Rock Island. I was like, that's really cool. And it was like Sunday at early in the morning. And I was like, I'm going to put on phone bid just because I want to see what that goes for, because that's really cool. Because the thing about this one is it came with the letters from Aberdeen, and this gun was documented. No shit, this is the gun. So you know the M16A2's shitty burst mechanism that has 4 different trigger pulls?
Yeah.
This is the gun that they copied it off of.
What?
Like they actually took the burst ratchet out of this gun and said, let's do that, and then put it in the first gen M16A2 burst mechanism. And so I was like, oh my God, that's so cool. There's no way I'll ever be able to afford this, right? And so I just go on phone bid, and the guy's like, all right, you want in? I was like, well, and I hear the auctioneer, anyone, come on. And he goes, are you in at 55? He says, are you in at $6,000? And I go, no. I was like, I don't have that. And he goes, how about 55? And I go, okay, bid 55. I won't win it. And the auctioneers go, okay, 55. Can I get $6,000? Get 57.50. Hello, anyone? Hello, machine gun. Hello. And he literally, it took him 2 minutes to hammer it because the auctioneer actually said, no shit. The auctioneer said on the phone, someone got a deal. And then the guy tells me, well, you got it. I go, what? I did not intend to buy a fucking machine gun today. So then I had to sell like a bunch of shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I love that stupid thing just because, one, it's a great way to, if you guys are true 7mm aficionados, I'm sure you've bought the salvage ammo from Bowman. Oh. Yeah, so it's a way for me to burn through some of those thousands and thousands of 5-cent projectiles.
Don't talk to me about South American surplus. I have taken apart so much 7.65 FMAP crap.
But I mean, at 5 cents for a projectile, I couldn't,
No, I know, and the best part is the 7.65 from FMAP is the actual correct diameter bullets,
Right.
So it's like, because everybody's like, oh, you could just use 311 bullets. I'm like, no, it's 313.
I never got my hands on that, but I got when Bowman had, and he's here in Florida, when he like did a super sale on that shit, I spent a couple $100 on it, and so I wound up with thousands of projectiles. Danny, I call it projectiles, but it's projectiles plus labor,
Danny, according to Wikipedia, they only made about 400 of them for Costa Rica.
That's pretty sweet. Yeah, I googled it. I was looking at it. It's a pretty neat looking gun.
And for some reason, you can get the mags off of Gun Parts Corp. For some reason, they have mags on Numrich.
Okay, we'll go on to the next. We're number 2.
Frick. We might have to make this a 2-parter, Danny.
Okay, so the second question is around. Well, I guess it's 3 questions around antique firearms. So, guns made before 1899. So, what do you think? I guess what's your opinion on like how the ATF interprets like the dating of the gun? Like, say if the gun is for sure like a Chilean 1895, it doesn't have the exact date that it's made, but you could tell by the serial number. Or I guess Swiss guns are kind of like that. You can,
right.
There's no actual date on the gun, but you could look up the date of when it was made by the serial number. Do you think that the ATF actually accepts that?
This is something that doesn't get brought up much because nobody brings controversies over this. Like a lot of people, if they just plausibly believe it was made before then, they just treat it that way. And I mean, I'm not saying that's the right way to do it, but that's definitely the way it gets done.
No, I know. I totally understand that because I saw 2 major resellers of Milsurps commit a felony by selling a firearm as an antique when it wasn't, because it was an M95.
Right, and it was shortened.
Yeah, so the examples were the barrels on M95s are dated with the acceptance dates. And none of the guns are dated other than that. And then the serials are not usable for dating because they're reusable. They're reused. Right. So if the barrel is dated, an example of one of them, the barrel was dated 1897. So, okay, it's reasonable to assume that that barrel was built in either 1895, 96, or 97, obviously. However, the serial on the barrel and the serial on the receiver did not match. And that means that that barrel is antique, but you have no way to prove that a receiver is.
Right. And well, so the thing about antiques is I think it's on the gun, right? Because
correct,
it's got to be on the complete gun. So, and that's the funny thing is pretty much all Berthier receivers were made in the first couple of years of production, but we know that they were getting shat out into the 20s and 30s, right? So but that's the thing, are you going to be the guy to make a big case out of it?
No.
So but if you're a guy who wants to, be really careful, then you gotta have some way of, and refurbs don't count as rebirths, I'm pretty sure. But when it's not in its original configuration anymore, then it's been reborn, and that's why like a Berthier is a CNR but not an antique generally, because they were, many of the 0715s were reborn off of late 1800s receivers. Or it's one of those guns where that was the case, like, but there's loads of them that have, and you can't date the receiver either. So
yeah. So my Berthier carbine, the barrel is dated 1895, and it was actually sold to me as an antique, just because.
Is it M16 marked?
No.
Okay, then that one's probably an antique.
Okay, so that was actually my next question on here, was like dates on the receiver versus the barrel. Does the ATF accept dates on the barrel? Because I could see why they wouldn't, right? Because it would.
Yeah. So I can't tell you what they'd accept, because this isn't something that people make controversies out of. It's not something that's been fought very hard. Generally when people are feeling weird about it, they just treat it as a CNR firearm.
Yeah. Huh.
But the big question here is the the and factors, right? And does it take ammunition that is not available in the ordinary stream of commerce? And people will argue with you, and like they'll go nuts, right, about whether it's 8mm, S or the 318 round. In my opinion, though, the ordinary stream of commerce is like, the sporting goods store. Like, I don't think that, for example, like, I don't think 8mm Lebel is available in the ordinary stream of commerce, right? But that doesn't mean you can't get it.
So it just comes down to what judge is interpreting.
Well, also that's just my opinion, right? That, because this is not something that gets fought that much, but I do know that it is not, like, when it has come to blows, like, they'll be willing to accept, like, I read about how 30-30, when it was the early 30-30, right? Like, say, imagine like an 1895 Winchester 94. Right, like the 30-30 that it was made for is slightly different. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like, I think.
So it's what can you articulate, right? What can you say? Because, and also remember, all of these things are intent crimes. Like, you have to knowingly violate these laws to be responsible for them. And so if you have a like good solid reason to believe something's an antique, then I would think that you should be okay, right?
Yeah. Which I think, like, the example probably everyone's going to think of is like with Finnish, Mosins. And it's like, the Finns put new barrels on them. So say you have a Finnish Mosin and the barrel's dated like 1941, right. But then you take the receiver out of the stock, you look at the tang, and it's, dated 1895. Right. So then, the big question is, is that really an antique? Because I think a lot of like Mosin people like accept it and just, openly sell them as antiques that way. But
they do. I think that's pretty dope. I wouldn't do that. Yeah. Because again, they focus on the original configuration, right? And so 1939 is not quite, original.
Yeah.
And like, okay. I've got an M91, and that's the funny thing is I've got a Finn M91, which like you look at it, it's like, that's old, right? But that's a more interesting question. Like the Finn M91s that were made on recycled receivers, it was remade into exactly that old long boy, even with the busted garbage handguard. What about that? I think that's a much closer and more interesting case. Right? Because I'm sure some moist nuggeteer could tell me that there's some minute difference between the, M91 and the Finnish M91, but for all intents and purposes, the configuration is extremely similar.
Yeah. So that's a lot of nuance that'd be argued in law. So I could see that being, yeah.
Well, so I think the thing to take away is, do you have a reasonable basis to believe that the firearm is antique? That's what I think the question really is. As far as, you being concerned about your own liability, is is it reasonable? Would a reasonable person believe, based on this information, that this is antique? And, that would be an open question that would be susceptible to nuance. That would be susceptible to whether there was data available with respect to the serial numbers, or whether it was known that, they stopped using a 0.1 millimeter rear sight, and, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good to know.
That gets very, very stupid technical very fast.
Well, but it all depends on what your asserted basis for belief is, right? If you're going in, I don't know, this is like you were saying, this is really nuanced and complicated, but my main thing is, I like to believe that in, an English common law system, if you behave reasonably and you carry yourself in a way that, you reasonably believe that something is not, that you're not violating the law, and that what you're doing falls within the scope, I think you should, I think as a general proposition, should probably be okay.
Yeah. Okay. Well, last question about antiques. This is a pretty easy one. Why is there a fixed date for antiques and a rolling date on CNRs?
Well, because the antique date's in the law, and whereas the CNR thing is actually regulation. So, and I explained this in that Fuddbusters video, but CNR isn't defined anywhere in the law, and they came up with a definition that just happened to be somewhat convenient for us. And then in 1992, in 2014, 15, something like that, they actually made it permanent and made it so ATF couldn't play with it anymore. Or wait, no, in 1992, they were saying, don't play with that definition anymore. And they would just keep updating that every year. Congress would do the same thing, puts the same instructions. And then at the tail end of the Obama administration, they went in and added words of futurity, which basically says now and forever onwards, ATF's not allowed to play with the definition of CNR.
Wow. Well, that's good.
Yeah. I mean, all it would take is another act of errant Congress to remove that. Right. And this is also, there's a few other helpful restraints that are placed onto the ATF by those riders. There's also some bad things, like the fact that there's no federal civil rights restoration is on those riders. So you can blame your Republican buddies for that. But yeah, the CNR thing was ATF made its own crap up, and it wasn't that bad. And so then we were like, okay, leave it alone. Don't touch. That's basically the short version.
Man. Okay. Well, the next topic is going to be about something. This is something that Aaron and I have recently argued about, and this is involving straw purchasing.
Oh,
I didn't realize this had changed.
And I know that the law was originally written, and it basically was about buying a firearm. Like if you don't have a criminal record, you can't buy a firearm for somebody that does. And I understand that, but then I heard about the Supreme Court case, the Abramski. I don't know if that's how they say their name.
Yeah.
US. And the way I'm not a lawyer, but the way I interpreted that is like, okay, the Supreme Court ruled, even though both people were not criminals, even though they did FFL transfers each way, and it's all legal, it's still illegal.
Well, you're wrong.
Haha. He was ready for that.
I love this little thing. So it's not, people cite that case as a thing saying like, you can't buy a firearm for another person. That's not what it says. The case is about a false statement. Okay. So the first question on the 4473 is, are you the actual transferee? if you purchase the firearm knowing that it's not for you, you purchase it intending to give it to somebody else, that's a false statement, and that's technically a felony. You can't lie on those federal forms.
So even if you're buying a gun as a gift for somebody, like I'm buying this gun because I want to give my grandpappy a shotgun, I can't do that.
The way I would read that is, yeah. So that's only where there's a federal form. So if you're in any state that has any reasonable degree of freedom, you're not making any representations to the federal or state government when you purchase a firearm, are you?
Yeah.
But, and again, it all is focused on intent. So in that case, he admitted that he intended to buy the firearm for somebody else, right? But I'm sure you guys have had situations happen where you'll buy something and you'll be like, oh, neato, I love this new, I love my 13th Shire M95. This is great. And then you like step out of the gun store and you're like, oh, actually the bolt feels like ice cream. I hate it, and then it's gone. Right.
Yeah.
I don't see a problem.
I've never sold an M95.
Well, that's there. I have like so many questions around this because so that brings up, like buying a gun for a friend, or if you're just buying it for yourself, obviously, right? Then there's no false statement. But then how long are you supposed to keep a gun before you can then decide to sell it? Because like you said, if you turn around, you leave the store and you go, oh, this gun's crap. Why did I buy it? Oh, damn. And then you want to sell it the next day. Then are they going to try to construe that it was actually a straw purchase, like you bought it just to sell it? Because
the burden is not on you to prove that you were innocent. The burden is on them to prove that you purchased it with, bad intentions. And so like, if you had text messages or whatever, and they were like, yeah, no, I'll buy the gun for you, felon, bro. I love you. Right. Like that's where those types of things happen. It's like, I think it only matters what your true state of mind was when you did the action, right? Because it's about, again, it's on a false statement. Now there's another thing here, a separate thing about illegal straw sales. So, that case, again, it was mainly about a false statement. So an illegal straw sale is when you purchase a firearm. And so this doesn't have to be on a 4473, but you purchase a firearm for the benefit of another person while knowing that that person is not eligible to own a firearm. Right.
Yeah.
So that's a different thing. That's a different thing. So, if and the way I understand things, the way I believe this to be the case, and, and anyone listening, I'm not your lawyer. So this isn't legal advice. I'm someone else's lawyer until you pay me to be yours. But anyway, I think all that matters is what your state of mind is at that time. And so then all that would matter if you were caught up in some hullabaloo would be what they could prove your state of mind was at that time. And, it's pretty easy for them to get into your, texts and calls and stuff like that. So don't play fast and loose with this crap. But when you buy it, if you buy something and you do it lawfully and you buy it intending for it to be yours, and then you decide you don't want it anymore, there is no like legally mandated period of time. It is all about what is your intention when you purchased it, when you made the representation to the federal government on that form.
Okay, that's good to know.
So Danny, that would have been illegal.
What? Oh, like
No, don't. No, we're not going to talk about it. But what Danny and I were going to do would have been illegal.
What I did not want to do.
Well, I mean, it would probably be pretty cool.
It would have been super cool, but Danny didn't want to be the cool dude.
No, like I said, man, I'm paranoid. I'm like,
I can't advise you to do cool things like smoke cigarettes and violate the law, but but so that's the sticky thing is, but people buy guns for other people all the time, right? And there's also another question where it's like, what about a father buying a gun for his son? Like in Florida where the under 21 can't buy it, but they can receive it as a gift. So it's, and you're dealing with another adult, like there is technically a false statement happening there. So I think the question comes down to one of enforceability and optics. Although the optics of the Abramski case were not that bad. Like these were they were literally just trying to get a discount, and then they went and snitched on themselves. But so yeah, don't snitch on yourself.
Yeah.
And also just don't break the law. But
yeah. So this is really close to number 5. So I'm going to skip number 4. So whenever you, so you're going to be privately selling a firearm, right? And it's in a state, and your state's cool with it. Are there any Are there any requirements such as a bill of sale? Because I've heard from quite a few boomers that you have to fill out something, or they won't sell you a gun unless you put down your address and phone number, and they see your driver's license. And
shut the fuck up, boomer!
You're having a little too much fun with that.
No. That's federally. Look, your state might have some different requirements, but it's totally not required. And also, I generally don't recommend it, because then if you're not required to by state, and you know the person is good to go, the person is or you have no reason to believe that they are a felon or that they're going to go do anything wild with it. I think generally I choose not to do that. I talk to people about it. They're like, well, why not? I mean, it's just for my protection. I go, oh, it's just for your protection. So you're going to create a record keeping requirement for yourself and then imperil yourself to maintain that record, because of course you'd refer to it if something were to ever happen. Right. Whereas lawfully you could just say, well, I knew he was a resident of my state and I had no reason to believe that he was, a bad boy. And so I sold it to him.
And I don't like it, but I will say that is one advantage of the Fudd, is that I just have to run his number through the state website. They don't have to know what I'm doing. They just have to check, yeah, that number's valid, and I'm good to sell it to somebody.
Right, but if it's not your duty to check, why do you care?
It is my duty to check.
But I was saying, if it's not.
That's a good point. Yeah, don't self-regulate.
You like the Fudd because they put a duty on you to do it, and it makes it easy for you to fulfill that unconstitutional duty that they force you to do.
It's a $10 tax is what it is.
Yep.
Because it doesn't
because
it doesn't track anything.
Because it shifts the law enforcement burden onto you though.
Yeah.
Which I don't like.
It doesn't track anything though. And that's they don't know what I have, because I'm not required to tell the state what I have through the Fudd. It's literally just a tax to keep you to know what you have. You do have a gun. Because, I mean, it's not even a lot of money, because it's $10 for 10 years, I think it is.
I think the fee of that is really just to keep the system running. But, in most states, though, it's just, and reasonable minds can differ on this, right? But I don't think it's our responsibility to shoulder the burden of law enforcement to achieve their objectives. I think it's our responsibility to behave reasonably and not, give burglars guns or whatever. So as long as I see no problems with a system that just says you had no reason to believe that there was something wrong, so you just did it. You should be at your liberty to do it.
Yeah,
good old Illinois.
It's so stupid. I've had this discussion I've had this discussion with Danny though, because he gets
I don't even know about Hawaii.
Danny gets so spooked about if I was to sell him something, and I'm like, dude, the Fudd has nothing to do with you. It's only for me. It's
and he seems like an excitable young man.
Well, I mean, and they don't understand that. People from Missouri will come up to Illinois to buy guns, and then they can just buy them. It's not like there's they require you to get a Fudd or whatever. It's just for me, stupid me.
I'm scared of it because I don't understand it.
Which is why I get people on Gunbroker that are like, I won't ship to Illinois. And I'm just like, thanks, guys.
I hate that.
I live 6 hours away from Chicago, which is why you're pissed off.
The Gunbroker seller, it's he's selling a Mauser or something. He's like, I will not ship to California, Illinois, New York, whatever. You don't like it, move out of your commie state.
Yeah, that's infuriating.
That's part of our topics later on, and I'm sure, but it's so pissed me off. There was a guy linked me a beautiful M95 that's not been converted. It's not been converted. It's on Gunbroker, and the guy's like, I will not ship to a CNR FFL. I will only ship to a legit FFL. And I'm like, fuck you.
Sir. Perish.
No, And they won't ever call it an 03 because that gives it more legitimacy. It's like,
it's not like it says federal firearms license on it or anything.
Yeah,
it's not like it's printed on the same shitty cardstock.
I will only ship to an FFL, not a CNR license. And I'm like, it is an FFL, you moron.
I had a guy in Florida freak out because I was trying to send my buddy a Hakeem, and he didn't have a CNR yet or whatever. And so he's like, "Oh, my local shop guy, he wants a copy of your FFL." So I sent it to him, and he just started ghosting my buddy because he was calling the ATF to make sure that I was legit. And when they were like, apparently they didn't want to deal with him, so he's like, "I would not accept any transfers from that. I never seen that." Because you know what it is? These guys, they think it's the same thing like we were just talking about. They think that it's their burden to like do the FBI's entire job. Whereas in reality, it's your burden to do what's reasonable, right? To take reasonable steps to ensure that you're following the law. So if somebody produces valid, ID and a valid federal firearms license that appears valid on its face, you've satisfied your burden. But they don't. You know why they don't like it? It's because CNRs aren't on FFL Easy Check, because that's a commercial system. So because they can't pull your number on FFL Easy Check, they freak out, and they think that somehow if you like fraudulently made a FFL license, that they'd be liable. And it's because that they are, developmentally challenged in a severe way.
I bought from one of those guys before.
I won't give them money.
I bought it because it was an all-matching Argentine Mauser, 1891, and it was an antique. And I was like, okay, so what do you want to do? So he was like, I need an FFL to send it to. So I gave him a friend of mine who has an FFL, a real one, because that's what he kept calling it. And I go, okay, send it to him. And my friend was like, what do I do with this? Do I log it? And I go, no, it's an antique. Here, look at the serial number. Here's when it was made. This company that made it doesn't even exist after 1896. So it's legit antique. And he's like, okay. So he sends it. The dude from, I think it was Mississippi or something. He sends it, and it goes FedEx. And thank God.
Of course it does.
Thank God my friend knows somebody that works at the FedEx distribution facility near here, because the guy wrote down a completely random address and then put my name as the thing and the FFL's business name. So it was like totally fucked. Like it was never going to get there. But a guy a friend of my friend saw it and said, oh, that goes to this address. I don't know why it's written like this. So he called up my friend and goes, hey, I got something here for you, but it's totally screwed up on the name and everything. And he goes, oh, is it for Aaron? And he goes, yeah, it's got his name on here. I was like, oh, great, that's perfect. I would have never seen it. It would have disappeared into the ether. And yet he insisted on sending it to a real FFL.
Because he's a big boy. You're not a member of the Big Boys Club. You wouldn't understand what it means to write down an address. You don't know how hard it is. You're not a big boy.
I got a pretty good Fudd story about an antique, buying an antique. As a Florida resident, I was in Utah, and I was in a gun store looking at a Gewehr 71, like the original 71, not a 7184. Right. And I was like, okay, I'm buying this thing. This is great. And so I walk up and I'm like, I would like to buy this, sir. And he's like, okay, give me your driver's license. And I was like, oh, this is an antique. You don't have to do a 4473. He was like, well, if it's on our books, we got to do it. And I was like, okay,
take it off
man.
Your books, idiot.
Yeah, I was like, okay, well, it's your $5. Okay, whatever. And I give him my driver's license, and he sees it's Florida, and he goes, oh no, I can't sell you any guns. I was like, yeah, you can. I was like, it's a long gun, first off, but more importantly, this is an antique. And he goes, no, it's I can't sell you any guns.
It's not a gun.
Yeah. So he turned down and he even called, he's like, I know a guy at the ATF, I'll give him a call. And I don't know who he actually called, but he called somebody and was like, yeah, nope, can't do it. I was like, damn. But I was gonna pay like $800 for this thing because it was pristine, all numbers matching and everything. somebody bought it for they ended up going down on the price all the way to $300, and they sold it to somebody else like a year later. So ended up screwing themselves. But
wow, that really makes my blood boil. I forced a Gander Mountain to sell me a handgun. It was I can't tell the full story because it's incredibly embarrassing what I actually did, but just safe to say I made a huge stink. You know, I was in law school there. I was a dual resident. I was living there, right, in Alabama, and I was at this Gander Mountain, and I was talking to somebody, like, and long story short, the cashier was like, "You know a lot about guns. Is there any you'd want to buy?" And I'm like, "You only have one gun that I have any remote interest in, and it's that Walther P5. But I'm sure you want way too much for it." And she wanted like $700 or something like that. And I was like, "You know what? I'll take it." And I didn't even know what they go for, right? And the manager comes out to like take the form or whatever from me, and I give him my driver's license, and then I had 3 water bills from the city showing my address, which if you look on the back of the 4473, that's good to go, right? My driver's license was out of state, but I had proof that I was an in-state resident. And he's like, "No, I need your Alabama driver license or a pistol permit." Like, no, you don't. And he was like, "You know, I've been doing this for 20 years. Yeah, you think I'd know a little bit about it?" And I was like, "Oh, you've been fucking your job up for 20 years at retail?" And he goes, I go, "I'm so impressed." Like, I was being a bastard too, but like, he was like basically calling me an idiot. And I remember he goes, "I am the store manager." I go, "Right, of a retail store." And still my point is the same. Sell me the gun. And yeah, so he wouldn't. He told me to leave the store. And I'm like, "Whatever, fuck you. I don't want to give you $700 anyway." I go into my car and I look up the price of what P5s go for in that condition with the Walther wood grips, and I was like, "Oh my god, I need it." Because it was like half the price, right?
Yeah.
So I called like Gander Mountain corporate and made this big story about how this guy was discriminating against me because they're yeah, and I put on a bit of an accent, and I was like, I just wanted to like see what you guys had to say before I call, you know, whatever, the local news. And they were like, no, sir, no. "Sir, do you still want the gun?" And I was like, "Yes, I do." And they were like, "Okay, well, what if we gave you the gun and $100 gift card?" I was like, "That works for me." And so I went in the next day and I made sure to wear a pink shirt, and I strutted in, and I walked to the back with a big stupid smile on my face, and there was the gun on the back counter with a little note that said, "For Matt LaRosiere, no questions." And I just pointed at it and I said, "Mine." They sold it to me.
Oh, wow, that's fantastic, man.
And so now I can never get rid of that gun because that's my
that's too good of a story.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I have another great story of a gun acquisition. My Gewehr 43.
Mm-hmm.
I was on VR chat, and there was this furry guy, really nice guy, and he had like a bunch of old French World War I stuff on his avatar. And I was like, "That's cool, man." He's like, "Oh, you're into guns?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And so we start talking, and he's like, "Yeah, the local pawn shop here called me in because they knew I liked weird guns, and they said they have this fucked up SKS, and they don't know what to do with it." And I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, I go there, and it's a Gewehr 43. I was like, "Okay." He's like, "I only gave him $300 for it, but it's not working right," or, you know, whatever. And I was like, "Well," and he's like, "I'm scared of it. You know, I don't know what to do with it, whatever." And I'm like, "Well, I'll take it." And he's like, "Well, what would you, you know, blah, blah, blah." We're talking. And I was like, I don't know, like $1,000. Right.
Yeah.
And it's got everything, you know, it needed a little work, but it was still a great deal. And he goes, "Okay." I was like, "All right, so how do you want me to pay you?" "I'll pay you like right now." He goes, No, I want to send it first. You'll pay me after." And so I'm like, "Okay." And so I'm thinking, oh, he's not going to actually do that. You know, he was just blowing smoke. Right. But for 2 years, I just would check in on this guy every once in a while. And we actually became buddies, you know, but I would just check in, just be really nice. And then just out of nowhere, There's a Gewehr 43 on my doorstep. He didn't say anything. It just showed up after 2 years.
Wow.
So be nice to people online.
Yeah. So I guess I need to join this furry community, try to get some cheap guns, man.
I mean, it's up to you whether you want to actually join the community. I'm not sure.
There's a lot of overlap, actually.
I'll do anything for cheap Milsurp, man.
No, you won't. You wouldn't break the law for me.
Well, it's not illegal to be nice to furries.
Should be.
Stop. That's where you get Gewehr 43s, brother. You won't catch me talking bad about them after that experience. But that's my second best, most favorite gun acquisition story.
Yeah, that's good, man. That's a good one.
Oh, and here's the kicker. It's in 308.
What?
Yep.
So
and it looks totally stock. It's awesome.
So did they plug the chamber and like rechamber it, or did they?
No, it's a new barrel.
Oh, huh.
I love it.
That's neat.
It's weird.
It says boof.
Okay, so the next question, this kind of would relate to, like, say if you were not a licensee and you decided one day that you wanted to sell that G43, right? Is it legal? You know, can people make a profit when selling a firearm without an 01?
What is your intent? So are you buying and selling Gewehr 43s and getting them from people? Are you going online to be nice to people to get Gewehr 43s so that you can make a profit as part of your ordinary and habitual course of business?
What if you just have...
Say no.
No.
Say no. Okay,
then it's legal. You don't get to control the market forces. If you're just buying and selling guns, or if you're let's say this, if your purchases are generally to enhance your collection, you're good to go. But so if you buy 5 Garens to get the best pieces and mix and match them and put them together and get the best one, and then you wind up selling the rejects, I think that's okay. If you buy 10 Garens to flip, I don't think that's okay.
It's obviously it's intent again.
Well, so like I'm running across I'm getting a lot of duplicates lately, right? So I'm I already own a gun, but I'm running across a nicer version and I'm buying it. And so now I have these duplicates and I don't really like care about having 2 of like the same guns really in most cases.
The same way except with French guns, in which I won't let them go.
Yeah. Well, I'm big into Swedes. I have like all like, multiple Swedes and stuff like that. And
right.
But like so I've had this whole question because I know about the enhancing your collection, and I've seen the little I think it was like an FAQ the ATF did, and they basically said like, yeah, you can sell a gun if you put that money into like another gun, like you sell a gun and then put the money into another gun, or if you're liquidating a collection. And that was the only like 2 scenarios that I ever heard the ATF clarify of when it's okay to like sell a gun and make make money. But then
you don't get to control the market factors that affect these guns. That's the thing. What you get to control, unless you're in McCollum, but let's not go there. But what you do get to control is what your intent is with the firearms, right? So if you buy a bunch of Milsurp like from auctions, and then you just keep turning them over and you just keep doing it, and eventually they notice and they audit your books and they see that, they're gonna have some questions, right? But if it's like you said, if I have a, let's say I collect Mausers and it's like, ooh, that's a way better Gewehr 98, and then I get rid of my old one and get this one, and it's appreciated by 40% since then. Well, I didn't make it do that. I didn't intend for it to do that. I intended to have a cooler Mauser.
Yeah. Well, but like, what are you allowed to do or not do with the money that you received from?
You're asking the wrong question. So you're like, what are you allowed to do? That's not, so there's 2 ways to do liberty. There's the right way, which is what we intend to do with the Constitution. And then there's the French way, which is what every other country does. So the French way is to say, these are the things you are allowed to do. These are your rights. The right way is to say, these are the sources of government power, and this is what is forbidden. So we aren't allowed to do anything. There are certain things that are regulated, and everything else is like the default condition, as it's supposed to be on our system of law, is liberty. So don't ask what you're allowed to do. Ask what is forbidden.
Okay.
Sorry, I get triggered.
like
there's a pile of M95s in the chat.
That's right. What were you going to say, Danny?
So my layman's interpretation of what the ATF says, and again, this is coming from a somewhat paranoid person of breaking the law. I don't know what is not allowed for me to do with money received if I sell a gun that is just a duplicate, and I'm just getting rid of it because I got a nicer one.
Yeah, but
let me give him the definition.
But like, the money go, like, say you sell the gun and then
No, hold on. I got you.
All right.
Are you a person who devotes time, attention, and labor to dealing in firearms as a regular course of trade or business with the principal objective of livelihood and profit through the repetitive purchase and resale of firearms? No.
No, Danny.
I mean,
the answer is no.
Yeah, no.
Do you have a day job?
Yeah, I mean,
like, you do that with the purpose of livelihood and profit. I don't think you do. Well, no, I won't tell you what you think, but do you? If you're collecting a firearms is the principle, like, done with the principal objective of livelihood and profit, then you need to know one. If you are a weirdo like me and you just like different ugly guns and you wind up buying and I am on an 0107, right? Part of what I do requires that, but on my CNR, that's all the time it'll be like, I don't need this anymore, or I need money, I need to get rid of this, like I need to get rid of this so I can pay this bill, so I can cover some other expense. Like, there's nothing, that's not the ordinary principal objective of livelihood and profit. That is being a normal human being and living your life.
Okay, well, that's good. I feel like that's a good clarification then, because like I said, just when I was reading what like the ATF is trying to say is like okay, like to do and not to do, it just didn't seem that there was very little.
Well, it's not gospel though. Like, so they gave two examples, but that isn't like the whole scope of the world, right? Like, that's what some bureaucrat thought was helpful for that day, right? So I mean, like, look, we all know the guys, right? The SERP boomers. Like, we've all had that buddy at a gun show who totally is just trolling local auctions to get shit on a CNR to then go and sell for like way too high at the gun show. Like, we've known him, right? That guy's probably breaking the law, right?
Yeah,
probably, right? If he like doesn't give a shit about any of this stuff, and like this is what he does this for the scratch, that guy's, he should have a dealer's license. But when our main objective is enhancing our collection, right, through a scope of different means, it doesn't mean that like you are now a firearms museum and you have to keep all your shit, right? And you have like, oh, you have 80 guns, so why do you only have 79 now? What happened? That's not how it is. And also notice it says repetitive purchase and resale.
Yeah. So if you were a person who had a somewhat rotating collection where they were constantly selling stuff and buying new stuff, just in happenstance, not for the purpose of making a profit, just as a hobby,
they would probably be suspicious.
It might be suspicious, like, and I mean, like, if they're turning over like 80 guns a month, but still it says the principal objective of livelihood and profit. So if that person's principal objective is like, they always wind up with, and I've met guys like that who only ever have 10 guns at a time, but every time you see them, the guns are significantly doper, right? Because they've been trading up. I don't think there's a problem with that.
Okay, this is good. This is real good.
Am I making you feel better or worse?
Well,
more paranoid.
No. I mean, I get the libertarian aspects of don't ask for freedom and don't ask what is allowed, but
that's not libertarianism. That's English common law. That's like the presumption is right. It's not a modern thing. That's how our system is written.
Yeah, you're off innocent. It's got really deep real fast. Oh, now we're back to our novel.
All right. Well, let's swing back over to number 4, which is about out-of-state purchasing. So this is sort of going to be for like private purchases, right? For long guns versus pistols out of your state of residence. Me being, from right on the state lines between Missouri and Kansas, I kind of see stuff like this, from people like at the shows. So I hear a lot of people say it's perfectly fine to buy a long gun in the state next door privately, but not a pistol. What do you think about that?
I'm pretty sure GCA. I don't know the way I read it. I haven't really thought about that. I haven't looked into that, but I think GCA steps on that toe.
Yeah. So pretty much no private purchasing then outside of your state of residence.
I think that's wrong, right? Like I think it's morally wrong, but I do think that's the way it is.
Yeah, because I was in Kansas. I was at a gun show and I saw a nickel plated, like a factory nickel Colt 1903, and seller wanted $300 for it. So I looked it over and I'm like, yeah, I'm buying this effing pistol. So I give him the $300, but I'm like, hey, I'm a Missouri resident, so will you ship it? And he was like, yeah, I'll ship it. And I just paid him some extra money so that he'll ship it, over to the FFL. But it's little situations like that where that same guy would be like, yeah, but you can buy a rifle if you didn't, can't buy a pistol, but you can buy a rifle. So it's like, I'm just surprised how many times I hear that is the
yeah.
thing.
So what the GCA locks up interstate firearms transfers, and I think it does it completely extra constitutionally, but that's what it does. So the pistol, like having to be in your state to buy a pistol is like a weird departure. The purpose of the GCA is to like create these stupid gatekeepers, the FFLs, to be the only people who are allowed to engage in the interstate transfer of firearms because they're federally regulated. So if you were able to, it would kind of subvert the awful purposes of the GCA, right? If that weren't the case.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. And then we know no pistols pretty much except in your state of residence, which is I've always wondered, do you know where that came about? Like why or anything? Why you can't buy a pistol from an FFL outside
because
of
pistols were hated until fairly recently. Like from the 1930s to the 1960s, the average American wanted, I'd say up to 60% of Americans wanted handguns to be banned.
Wow, really?
Handguns were something that most people in the country really didn't like. And there were a lot of very bad reasons for that, very, racially motivated reasons. And there's a lot of good reading to do about that. But yeah, no, it's because the public perception in the United States of who uses handguns has done a 180-degree turn in the past several decades.
So that's just a much older law. Is that in the GCA?
Yes.
Okay.
What always strikes me as funny is Lynyrd Skynyrd, one of the biggest Southern rock bands. Their song "Saturday Night Special" is about getting rid of handguns.
Yes.
And it has a lyric. It says, "Why don't we dump them to the bottom of the sea?" And it's like literally this is one of the biggest Southern rock bands, and everybody's like, "Oh yeah, they're awesome." It's like they're talking about getting rid of all handguns.
And the Brady campaign, do you guys know what their original name was?
No.
The Coalition to Ban Handguns.
Oh, wow.
It's either them or one of the other, they're all the same. They all share a butthole, but yeah. And the NFA's original draft, the primary purpose of it was to ban all handguns. Well, not ban, but make all handguns, unacceptably expensive.
Yeah.
And then they randomly, they somewhat quietly added machine guns and then randomly added sound suppressors. And the SBR and SBS stuff is literally only there because they wanted to prevent people from getting around the handgun ban by just chopping down long guns.
Yeah.
And so now we have to deal with this stupid law that was designed to prevent us from running around a law that never actually existed.
Gosh, that's so crazy. And then the Hughes Amendment part is always I don't understand because I've seen the
Yeah.
C-SPAN footage of of them voting on it, and it clearly wasn't voted for.
Right. There were procedural defects, but then Reagan cured them when they signed it. So technically, like, those defects, they existed, but if the president, and leadership don't bring it up and don't act upon those defects, they get cured by the president's signature, which is why Reagan is the great infringer.
Yeah. I'm always surprised, how many Republican presidents pass gun control.
Past the literal majority of the gun control alive in our country. Yeah.
Yeah. I had a conspiracy theory, man, that Obama was secretly pro-gun.
I think there's no way that dude didn't own stock in gun company. There's just no way. That dude was packing some Sturm Ruger and some Smith & Wesson. No way.
Yeah, one of the things I really liked that Obama actually signed into law was the allowing carrying of firearms on state parks and
National
stuff like
parks,
that. Yeah.
And then he also made it slightly easier to he got rid of the Clio sign off requirement on NFA firearms. On the other hand, made it more annoying for trusts. But if you don't, if you're not very social, Obama actually made it a little bit easier to have cool guy guns. Not that I'm a huge fan of him or a fan of him at all. I'm just saying people don't really, the presidential involvement in gun control is really a lot more complicated than people would believe.
Yeah, I had to sit down with my sheriff back when I got my SBR forever ago.
Did he act like a little bitch?
No, he was actually pretty cool about it. But it was just weird, I had to get an appointment with the sheriff and sit down in front of him, and he was like, "Why do you want this?" I was just.
And you were like, "It looks cool."
Yeah, I don't know. I can't even remember what I told him. I don't know. I was probably just like, because I want it. I don't know. Probably said something like that. But it was North Florida, so he was a good old boy.
Good old boy. Why can't you just have yourself a Winchester?
Yeah, and I went and I got it, and as soon as I got the tax stamp back, I didn't have an SBR upper yet. I went to a friend's gun store, and we just put the first short barrel that he could find on my AR and went out and shot it. And it was something like an 8-inch pistol upper or something. And it's made this enormous, boom and, fireball even in the middle of the day. And it was like, yes.
My first SBR was my Colt 607.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
I love it. I got one of the 607 stocks made from that guy on Facebook. He's a wonderful dude. And I went nuts. Everything had to be right. I got a 1 in 12 barrel, and I cut it down to 10 inches exactly because I had wanted this gun since I was a kid. And you know why I wanted a 607?
Why?
I had an airsoft gun that was a 607. I knew nothing about its military significance. I just knew that it was so handy, and I loved it.
Yeah. It's funny the reason why we buy some guns.
Yeah. And if anybody says they bought a Jericho, the real reason they bought it. They might want to lie and act like they're not a weeb, but we know why they bought it.
Yeah. So this will be a good last couple of questions here about Fudd lore, which is kind of your specialty now with your channel. So, we kind of might have answered this already. What is your biggest pet peeve of Fudd legal advice in quotations?
Okay, and this is something that really just lights me off, but the open bolts are machine guns makes me want to just whenever I hear somebody say that, it's hard for me not to bite their throat. I hate it. It's a lie. There is no basis. Whatever basis there is fundamentally misunderstood, and they just keep repeating it ad infinitum. It's even some of them big gun tubers sit there and say, "Oh, well, no, because the HF ruled in 1986 that any new gun that had an open bolt would be a machine gun." They don't have the authority to do that and show me where they ruled that, you idiot. Oh, you can't, because it didn't fucking happen. You just made it up. Never fucking happened. What actually happened was there was 2 companies that were making open bolt semi-autos that literally in 5 minutes or less, you could take one part out and it would be a fully reliable machine gun. And they were like, "Yeah, can you not do that?" And then all of a sudden everyone was like, "Oh, no more open bolts." That's what actually happened. It's just total bullshit.
Oh, So there's no actual ruling at all. The reason why, like, what is it? The Mac 11s and Mac 10s and shit all switched. The reason why they all switched to closed bolt is just because it's specific to them.
The Mac 11 was because you could, if you take the disconnector out, it's a fully reliable machine gun, and it takes like seconds to take the disconnector out. And what they referred to is a single pass of a milling cutter, right? Makes it a machine gun. So it was the Mac 11, and then I think it was Catco that was doing just Sten Mark IIs that just had the selector welded in semi. And if you just took a Dremel and cut the disconnector, it would run full auto perfectly fine. This is, of course, to say nothing of the dozens of other open bolt semi-automatic firearms that were available before and after that point. But the Fudd lore just permeated throughout the industry. And then on top of that, the fact that, it's just not a very good system to have a semi-auto. But people now believe that very firmly, and they refer to, an ATF ruling, which does not exist.
Yeah.
And they do it, by the way, without ever even thinking to ask what the ruling said. It didn't say anything because it's not real. It said, please don't make your gun able to convert into a full auto in 3 seconds, please. That's what it said.
Wow. Yeah, because people really do treat that like it's a commandment from on high to not.
Right.
Yeah.
And there are plenty of cool old guns that are open bolt that it would be cool to see, that there could be very reliable semi-automatic only that are truly not easy to convert, to full auto, but nobody's even remotely doing them. They're just finding different ways to shove an AR trigger in it.
Yeah. Yeah, I have I only have one open bolt gun. It's a Mauser 105. It's like the 22. I think it's based on a Vor, however you pronounce it. But I just saw it and I was like, that's effing sweet, like an open bolt, 22.
Yeah, that's cool.
But then I've heard that a lot, like, oh, that thing's a machine gun, or you better register that. Yeah.
I'm scared.
I think the one time somebody told me that I get a free pass at registering that as a machine gun or something like that. I forgot what they said, but it's something along the lines like, oh, you could there's an exception. You can make that a machine gun if you want, or because it's open bolt or something.
Amazing. Yeah. The trash people will repeat.
Yeah. It is. So if that's your biggest pet peeve, what's just the most batshit craziest piece of Fudd lore you've heard? Just
it's funny. I was gonna say the 3-step rule, but then we covered that for 20 minutes. So let me think. I mean, people say so much stupid shit.
Yeah, there's a lot to choose from. I know this is kind of a tough one. It's hard to pick of all. You can pick just a couple that come top of your head.
I mean, we covered most of them just in our discussion. You got to have a bill of sale. Another one that's funny is I like hearing people the way they always say, anyone who has a machine gun, you got a class 3.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that? Do you know what you mean? No, they don't know. Oh no, he's got a special license. Yeah, he can have that. That's how you lose your rights when you make shit like that up.
Oh yeah. When they call it a class 3 license, you got a class 3 license to own that machine gun?
Shut up.
That's a good one. I have a story about that. I don't know how I got out. I was young. I was 18 or 19 or something like that, and I had a Wasser 1063. Thought I was pretty cool with this AK. And I would take it out and I would bump fire it every now and then, right? Because I would just burn through ammo because it was 2 cents a round, back then. And I was bump firing it out at range, and the guy who owned the range, because it was out back of a gun store, came out and was like, "You got a license for that? You got a license for that fully auto fire?" Or said something like that. And I said, "No, it's not. It's not full, I'm bump firing it. It's not really fully auto." He goes, "I heard it. That's fully auto. You better have a license for that." And we just kind of went around this circle for a good 5 or 10 minutes. And I'm like, "I promise you, this is semi-auto. I was just bump firing it because I'm 19 and stupid. But eventually just kind of like walked away and was like, whatever.
There he is.
But that's
I hope you let me see it. Let me see your license. Oh man, I just oh yeah. One thing I heard that was like batshit was someone was like, so if I buy this gun, I can't let my wife use it, right? And the owner, I was at a gun store in, was it Georgia or Alabama? And the owner just goes, supposed to. And I was like, what? Like what?
Supposed to.
Yeah. I mean everyone who's like, is them guns registered when we don't in most of the country?
Oh yeah,
like,
yeah.
That burns me up pretty good.
Registered to you? Yeah, a lot of people say that 4473s is like registration, like it's registered to you. Because you got the was it the Red Dawn moment, right? Where the Cuban guy's like, go get all the 4473s.
Yeah, and I think the most batshit one was that guy who like believed that he had to lock his gun away from his wife.
Oh yeah, I mean I feel that way about my SBR because I did it, obviously well before I met my wife. So I don't really know how that goes for like NFA items if you do it individually, like around your wife.
Kind of sketchy. Yeah, basically she shouldn't. So like legal control is a whole interesting, very convoluted, nuanced thing. And it's different from physical control. So like, if you're at the range with her and she's shooting it, she has physical control of it, but she doesn't have legal control.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's and it has something to do with permission, access. There's a lot of different factors.
Yeah. Oh, here's a good one for you. I've heard this. If you have a registered short barreled AR lower, that you can put a 16-inch upper on it, and then it's not like an NFA item. Like as far as maybe transferring across state lines or something, yeah, but like it's not an actual SBR then because it doesn't have a short barrel on it.
Yeah, it's kind of sketchy though because you don't want it listed if you're gonna like get rid of it. You want to have it delisted. You want to contact an ATF and have them, send them a picture of it with the long boy on it, and have them delist it. But yeah, when the firearm doesn't have characteristics that bring it within the context of the NFA, then it is not an NFA firearm.
Yeah. I've always, because I brought it out like to Utah and stuff, but I did the Form 20 or whatever that thing is called for it. But I've heard people say like, oh, you can just put a 16-inch barrel on it and then you can take it across state lines and it's fine.
Yep, because you're not transferred. I mean, like you're not there. You don't have an NFA item. You have something that can be an NFA item, but you did not transport over state lines a short barreled rifle. Right? Because how long was the barrel? It was extended. It was a long boy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's interesting. I don't really think about that stuff much.
Yeah, I didn't add that one to the list. I was just thinking about it as I was going through this. Because it's interesting, like 16-inch, everybody wants, super short, barreled guns. But like, it's funny what was short back in the day. Like an Argentine 1909 cavalry carbine, it's got like a damn 23-inch barrel on it. And that's a carbine to them, 23 inches. It's like a short, handy gun.
Yeah.
But like, if it's longer than like 11 inches, we're like, man, that's a long gun. That's way too long for CQB.
That's why you got to get into, either one, repeal the NFA, or two, get into bullpuppers.
Oh yeah. That's a whole interesting thing, right? But there's the overall length requirement, right?
It's just the overall length requirement, so it's not an AOW.
Yeah.
And AOWs are again focused on functional equivalence of handguns, which is the only thing the Supreme Court has so far said we have the core, truest fundamental right to.
Yeah, AOW.
Ironic.
AOW's always worried me because I'm like, what would keep them from expanding the definition of AOW?
Congressional writers.
Yeah.
Well, and also a fairly decently drafted section. It's focused on measurements.
Yeah. I mean, I was talking with somebody about this and they were like, well, that's what Biden's going to do. He's going to make everything NFA or make everything an AOW. And because, any other weapon is that's a super
I mean, even the super gun control groups don't think that he can do that without the help of, both houses. So if that's going to be possible, it would have to be in a time where you flip the Senate, or you get some squishes, right? I don't know, but you can't. I say you can't, right? But the government breaks the law every day. But anyway, I feel pretty good that they wouldn't get away with that.
Yeah, here's hoping at least. But fun stuff, man. Like I said, this is a weird hobby that you have to be a lawyer to not be a felon. And I've seen
at least to get into the weird, corners.
Yeah. And anybody who's been in this, any amount of time has, seen some, shit or knows somebody that's, committed a felony unknowingly because they just, I
made fun of somebody once who was a super law follower, right? Super duper Boy Scout 2 shoes. And they went to a gun show out of state and they weren't even thinking and they bought a handgun. I was like, what did you do? You bad boy? He was freaked out.
Oh man. Well, what if he was your client, what legal advice would you give him to resolve?
Oh man.
Throw it in.
He fucked up. What I don't even think returning it would be curative. If you got caught, I think you just keep your mouth shut and just not say anything and just make it a nightmare. Because don't play around with that is all I would say. Because if you do get caught in the act, it's a sting or whatever, you're pretty, and you're out of state, it's pretty cut and dry. So if they were my client, I'd be like, did you talk to the cops? And then if they said no, I'd be like, really, what did you tell them? And then if they were like, really, nothing, I would take both of my hands and I would start kissing them on the lips. But almost every time they're like, no, I didn't. No, it was just.
So you ask them if they own a boat and tell them that they need to go out onto a large body of water.
I hate that meme.
Yeah.
It makes me mad. But yeah, but that's don't, if you're trying to get sneaky, don't mess with that interstate stuff because they are always trolling for that. And it is just such an easy way to get you dead to rights. Just get it shipped in. If you're worried, just get it shipped in. Not if you're worried, just get it shipped in. Jesus.
Yeah. No.
Or get your CNR and focus on weird things you can buy wherever you want.
Yeah. So for the future of your channel, what do you have in mind for it? Right now, are you just going to be sort of legal advice sort of focused, or are you ever going to get into maybe busting some Fudd lore revolving functionality of guns? Are you gonna have any shooting or anything like that in the future, shooting your machine guns, disproving myths?
Oh, I don't know. I'd love to get feedback from y'all and other people in the community as for what's needed. I kind of feel I kind of have that imposter syndrome, and I'm a very young channel. I have, I'm just starting out. But I feel all of my friends who are out here, do the shooting content so good. I'm do I really have anything to add? I do, I feel because I was a mechanic before I went to law school, I feel I pride myself in being able to communicate the legal stuff in plain English. So that's what I want to do. There's a lot of FUD topics and a lot of so I'd say that the immediate future is a real history of the NFA, of other big gun control laws, how we wound up with them, what was the original intentions, a lot of stuff that I've done deep research into and that many people haven't really thought about. But then after that, I would, it's one of those things where it's will I ever be able to even cover all that? Who knows? But I would love to. I am also pretty deeply involved with gun design. I work with, I'm a consultant for a couple different companies. And I really like to nerd out on some of that stuff. I would just have to think of a way that I could, make it entertaining and not just be me being a nerd at my CNC machine.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, there's probably not a whole lot of stuff you can do on a CNC on YouTube now.
Right.
Yeah.
But I would love to do shooting videos. I feel so intimidated by the vast quality. Right, that that other people are watching. But I guess more doesn't really hurt, no matter what.
Yeah. I mean, more stuff doesn't really hurt. Like my 2 cents is, like you have to just sort of find your niche, and go after that. I like doing stuff that's not talked about, anywhere else. Like a lot of my videos it's like, like the one I just did put out this Friday is on Venezuelan Mausers, and there's no good content on Venezuelan Mausers because there's not a whole lot of documentation on them. So like if you look on YouTube for Venezuelan Mauser, you're going to see some old dudes at the range shooting them in little like 10-second videos, and you have like my video,
That's awesome.
So, well, thanks. I would say like go after what isn't out there already, and also like what you like and what drives you, because like if you want to do this for a while, like you have to actually love it, man, because it's it's really hard. I've been doing like the weekly content now for a few years, and I don't know, it's like nothing compared to like like what Ian does, like putting out a video a day or whatever. But this isn't this is my hobby, and it eats up like 10 hours every week at least, putting out videos and doing research and everything. So it has to be like, it has to be something you're passionate about, probably first and foremost. And then if your passion is there and people like you have a great personality, I think everyone's going to enjoy like your content, what you have to say. So
thank you, you're sweet.
Thanks. But if you I think if you just keep at it, man, you've already got a really good start. I forgot how many subscribers you have.
They're like 7 something. It's been 3 weeks. So.
Yeah, that's phenomenal, man. Like that type of growth. I remember how many years it took me to reach 1,000 subscribers, and how excited I was. Yeah. Like I was churning out like a video a week for like, I don't know how long. I forgot, maybe a year or so before I reached 1,000. So
yeah, I've been really blessed. Like I just where I've been in my career has just put me in touch with all these amazing people, like Othias, and like with Control Pew, who's actually my business partner. And just like all these great people that have really helped push me to do this. But I'm passionate about getting the truth of what's out there, known to people, because my biggest like the thing that makes me most upset is when there's enough laws out there, right, that restrict us. And so when people make them up, right, and start enforcing them against themselves, that is just it's almost like comedic, but it is really tragic. And so I want to use my, I wasted all that time getting a stupid legal certificate, right? I should do it and do something with it, something helpful. So that's kind of that's my idea.
Yeah, it's a good one, man.
Well, and I also I wasn't really into politics when I was working in DC. I worked at a think tank, and so I just learned a lot about policy and really asking why on stuff. And I think that's something that we don't do enough, right? Like we'll say, oh well, this is the law, and we kind of just like go from there, right? But I think it's important to know the whys behind everything.
Yeah, that is true.
And if the why is stupid, then we set the law on fire.
Yeah. I mean, repeal the NFA. I've heard that for a long time, and you would probably know a lot more about what sort of legal proceedings would need to happen to start that off. But
I've got some ideas.
Yeah. What would you like? What do you think would be the easiest thing to repeal first? Like, would you go after like the Hughes Amendment? Would you go after like
see, here's the thing. I love machine guns. Machine guns make me happy. I think everybody should have one. I think it's total bullshit that they're like, right now they're like reserved as toys for, privileged people. I think fucking everybody should be able to have one. However, the Overton window is just not there. People are freaked the fuck out by machine guns. Even like allegedly pro-gun people, they sit there and like repeat that, oh no, it's not an assault rifle because it's semi-automatic. Assault rifles are banned because they're too dangerous, right? Like, so I do think that if there's a way to Well, one, there's a nice way of attacking the NFA, but that is like actually incredibly boring. It's something I've been working on, and it's actually a constitutional taxing clause analysis. But I will not get into that. I promise it will bore your legs shut. But the thing that I think is most ripe for attack right now is, with all of this pistol grace crap going on, attacking the SBR and SBS thing on the grounds that it is designed to regulate the functional equivalent of a handgun. And the Supreme Court has stated very clearly that those small concealable weapons are something that is at the core of our constitutional right.
Yeah, I forgot when was that Supreme Court case? It was fairly recent, right?
It's Heller in 2008.
Yeah. Which I was surprised that like 4 voted against. Like it's
were you?
I mean,
Abramski was a 5-4 as well, by the way. Thomas, Scalia, and 2 others dissented, saying, "What the fuck is wrong with you? There's nothing wrong with what this guy did."
Yeah.
That's the problem when you have, laws that are beyond the scope of what the government was designed to do, and then you have a court sitting there trying to reel in something that was just like through a system that was never designed to handle such an issue. You're going to get, garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah.
Like there's a very short list of things that the federal government is allowed to do, and they went and shit it up.
Yeah. It should be, right? But the whole interstate clause thing, me not being, very savvy when it comes to the law, that's way overblown, right? The whole federal government's interstate.
Total. I give a quick rundown on it. I'm pretty proud to say that's probably the quickest rundown ever on the interstate commerce clause in my video on interstate transfers.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was literally like, there's this little thing here. How do we save the New Deal? Oh, we shoehorn the entire thing into the commerce clause, which is, as I explained there, it was designed to keep states from like taxing each other.
Which is something I never actually heard that before about taxes.
Well, yeah, because they went and obfuscated everything, right? Because they want to create this veneer of like validity to it, but in reality, the Commerce Clause was designed for exactly to keep regulate keep regular commerce between the states, with foreign nations, and the Indian tribes, which just means you're there to facilitate transactions, right, and ensure that there are not unfair barriers within the contiguous U.S. like there were under the Articles of Confederation, where different states would like get angry at each other and then like put tariffs on their shit, which would fuck up the entire economy. Like that's what it's for. And then they're like, oh no, it's okay, it's cool. It means you can like ban poppy seeds.
Yeah, the New Deal, which
bad deal.
Yeah. If you were in a room with FDR, Woodrow Wilson, FDR, Woodrow Wilson, Hitler, and a gun and 2 bullets, what would you do?
I'd shoot FDR twice. Oh, no, okay, Hitler. Is it before he did the stuff, or he already did the stuff?
Oh, well, I guess he already did the stuff.
Can I just line them all up? Can I just line them up?
Yeah, I was just ranting about FDR today to my wife because of
if it was an automatic pistol, I don't think it's not because like I think either of those people are not horrible. It's because I wouldn't be able to stop shooting FDR.
Man, yeah. Well, I was just talking about his executive order to like turn gold in to your like closest Federal Reserve bank, like not to go down that rabbit hole.
Whoa, man.
Yeah. And what about, I don't know, existing as a Japanese person?
Yeah. And then just
father of American progressivism, no Japs.
Yeah, puts hundreds of thousands of Americans into camps, and that's cool.
But it's cool because bread lines, bread on every table.
Yeah, I think even what's his name? George Takei defended FDR.
Yeah, because he's a modern progressive, and there is a orthodoxy, and if you don't follow it, you get punished severely.
Yeah. So I was like, wow, like he literally threw that person in a camp for his race when he was a child, and he's defending him because he has to. It's got to, wow.
Imagine being programmed. Like, that must suck. I can't imagine not having free will like that person clearly doesn't.
Yeah.
Are we leaving this all in, Danny?
Maybe. I don't. Yeah, I guess so. We rant. We go off. What was that one podcast where I don't know. We talked about something not gun related for like an hour. It was way off course.
I'm not allowed to correct you though anymore.
Oh yeah, people get angry at Aaron when he tries to make us stay on task.
Oh really? People like the nonsense?
I guess.
Yeah.
I guess.
I was told that I was trying to take control over whatever, and I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I think just the longer the podcast is, the more people like it. You know, because
that's I helped take over This Week in Guns, and that used to be like a 20-minute thing, and then we just started like last week, we were just like talking shit about how I stole a forklift, and everyone loved it.
Oh, I haven't heard that story, but I feel like I want to hear it now.
Should we? Are we still recording?
Are you? You're the recorder, dude. Are you
still recording?
Okay.
Should we finish this?
Yes.
We've been recording for.
I think I went through all the questions. Yeah.
I've been recording for 2.5 hours.
Yeah, it's a good one. Well, we haven't done a podcast in like a month, so this is extra content will be good.
I don't think anybody will complain. You want to wrap it up, Danny?
Yeah. So I've just completely lost my train of thought right now. I finished this
thinking about shooting FDR.
Yeah, I know. It's because I finished my my old fashioned, and my wife gave me a lot of bourbon this time. So
Danny always gets a little rambly at the end.
Yeah, because I'm drinking throughout the podcast. It's a nice social.
You guys didn't tell me I could swear, and you didn't tell me I could drink. Shit would have gotten much more interesting.
Oh man. Okay. Yeah. Next time. Yeah. You can.
Well, I'll be happy to work with y'all on whatever. If you need, my perspective on one of your videos, I'd be happy to chime in.
Yeah. That sounds cool, man. We'd be happy to have you back on, the podcast or maybe something on the channel, at some point. So thanks to everyone for listening to us ramble on here for so long. Hope you enjoy this sort of content. Thank you so much, Matt, for coming on the show, man. It's been a good one.
Oh man, thanks for having me. And I just know Z-Man's on your Discord. I love you, Z-Man.
So Matt's YouTube channel, Fuddbusters, Fudd Busters, 2 words on YouTube. Go check it out. Gives great legal advice. Great video.
Not legal.
Okay, not legal. He gives not legal advice on his YouTube channel. It's good, not legal advice. So check him out. And thanks again, man.
No problem. Thanks for having me. It was fun.